Welcome one, welcome all to a world where anything is possible. This is Love versus Fear, part 2 of the foundational principles, the 7 hermetic principles. I'd like to continue where I left off last episode and finish talking about the most important foundational natural law principles we must understand. It's as important to know these principles as it is to breathe, or to know about the law of gravity. You may not need to know exactly how gravitons work, but you need at least know of it so you don't go walk yourself off a cliff. Same thing with these principles. If you continue to ignore them, you'll continue to inflict unnecessary, self-inflicted suffering from the consequences of ignoring these universal natural laws, these cosmic laws, these hermetic principles that are applied everywhere in the known universe. And this just isn't my opinion either. These are universally applied, immutable laws of nature. And I'm not talking about some other universe in the multiverse or some other alien dimension. I'm talking about the domain in which we operate and dwell in. Ever heard of the saying, be here now? If not, you're probably too busy living in your own world, ignoring the ultimate reality we all exist in and share. So without further ranting, let's begin with the arguably 7 of the most important cosmic laws of nature. And we will go over the last law, the 8th hidden principle, that I believe is the most important of them all. Notice how I said I believe. I'm still a student myself in this whole spiritual journey, but it's important I share the knowledge I have collected so far in order to refine it and improve my own understanding as well. So take what resonates and leave the rest. So just because something works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Just because something doesn't work for me doesn't mean it's not going to work for you. This whole spiritual journey for truth is about a process of elimination and trial and error and seeing what works and what doesn't work. And hopefully you'll discover that the truth and love will work for us all. The truth will set us all free. So without further ado, the 7 cosmic laws, otherwise known as the 7 hermetic principles. To get an even further understanding of them, read the book The Kabbalion, the definitive edition by William Walker Atkinson. There are many editions and interpretations passed down by Hermes Trismegistus, as he was referred to in the ancient Greek mystery traditions. He was considered to be a messenger of the gods, bringing their wisdom down to humanity. Perhaps the greatest philosopher I know, but it doesn't matter if he was the origin of this information or not. The truth that he discovered and attempted to share about himself and the universe is what is of importance. Hermes Trismegistus was referred to by ancient Egyptians and Phoenicians as Thoth, and different cultures and subsects will call him Tahuti, or the Greeks called him Hermes. So different cultures called him different things. They deified him for the wisdom he shared, and ultimately that wisdom was the 7 hermetic principles, otherwise known as the 7 general principles of natural law, that are binding and immutable to all. They are laws of the universe, laws of nature, that are in operation and cannot be changed. And these 7 general principles are the principle of mentalism, principle of correspondence, the principle of vibration, the principle of polarity, the principle of rhythm, the principle of causation, and the principle of gender. So we talked about a couple of them last episode, and we'll continue to talk about these 7 principles further on as well. Let's just start with the principle of gender. Gender exists in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine components, or principles. This can be seen in the left and right hemisphere of the human brain, consciousness, worldview, etc. Gender manifests on all planes of existence: spiritual, mental, physical, emotional, everything. On the physical plane, the principle manifests as sex. On the higher planes, it takes higher forms, but the principle is ever the same. No creation, physical, mental, or spiritual, is possible without this principle in place. This principle works ever in the process of generation, regeneration, and creation. This principle contains the solution to many mysteries in life. To the pure, all things are pure. To the base, all things are based. The masculine and feminine principles are present and active in all phases of phenomenon. Gender in its hermetic sense, and sex in the ordinary accepted use of the term, is not the same thing. The word gender is derived from the Latin root meaning to beget. to procreate, to generate, to create, or to produce. Sex is merely a manifestation of gender on a certain plane. The physical domain, the plane of organic life. The masculine principle is electric and positive. Feminine is magnetic and negative. The atom is composed of a multitude of electrons or ions revolving around each other and vibrating at a high degree and intensity. The formation of the atom is really due to the clustering of negative corpuscles around a positive one. The positive corpuscle seems to exert a certain influence on the negative corpuscles, causing them to assume certain positions, thus generating an atom. Phenomenon of the attractions and repulsions of the atom's chemical affinity refers to the attraction and cohesion between the molecules of matter. The love and the fear. The only real two choices we have at the end of each and every moment. To briefly discuss gender, as it is on the mental planes of existence, is the state of coexistence between the masculine and feminine aspects of the mind. This can be seen in the physiology of the brain and higher order parts of the brain like the neocortex. Our left brain hemisphere largely facilitates the masculine aspects of the mind, the intellect, logic and analytical linear thought processes, while the right brain hemisphere largely facilitates the feminine aspects of the mind, or intuition, creativity, passion, holistic thought processes like imagination, empathy, and compassion. The principle of cause and effect, as we discussed a little bit in last week's episode, but to reiterate this very important principle, states that every cause has its effect, and every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to natural law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes this principle. So again, is there free will? Yes, there is free will, but not without consequence. And this is the limit of free will. We live in a world where everything and anything is possible, including for things to be impossible, which is just spelled I'm possible. See, all truths are half-truths, including this truth. Every law has an exception, including this law. So, it's up to you to determine what the higher state of vibration, which is love, the higher truth is, and for you to bring the two halves of the truth together. But enough of that. However, you can't take any action in this world without having some sort of effect. That it is impossible. So, you can break natural law. That's totally possible. But you cannot break it without consequence. Negative consequence. Some refer to this body of knowledge as consequentialism, karma dharma. Others just call it common sense because that's what it really is. Or the golden rule, or the real law of attraction. Doesn't matter what you call it. It's just the knowledge of how consequences are generated by our free will decision-making processes within the boundaries of natural law. The reason why the pattern recognition of cause and effect is so difficult for most people is because when you set a cause in motion, its effect doesn't happen instantaneously. There's a time gap between the cause and effect, or by what we perceive to be linear time, because there's a multiverse theory that states all moments are just present moments, and depending on what your energy's frequency is vibrating at, is going to dictate what moment you're resonating with. But again, I'm not getting into multiverse right now. Just talking about our universe and karmic consequence. It's important to understand what's happening and how it's happening and why it's happening. All of us are experiencing in the aggregate the wrongs that the human species as a whole is conducting on a daily basis, which we do not attempt to rectify and stop through our action as well as our inaction. Karma is being accrued. And that's the problem with our entire society. There are not enough people taking any action, and they're willing to let evil run amok and unchecked in our world. If we do not change our own thinking, our own thoughts, our own emotions and behaviors, this is going to come back and bite us. And it's going to suck. So, you got to understand, nothing escapes law. Universal natural law. We are all bound by it. It exists eternally. If we do not understand the causal factors that lead to the current conditions in place, we will have no power to effect change. All power exists on the plane of causation. The question why is the only source of real power. Without why, without purpose, you are powerless. And ultimately, it all starts with choice, love or fear. And our choices are what sets that causality into motion before it becomes an effect. No power to affect any change exists in the plane of effects, which is the physical domain of reality. Again, what already is, nothing can be done about. But you can change what is starting now, in the here and now. You can't change the past. You can change what is starting now with your choices in hopes to create a better future for everyone. Right now, what has occurred is the truth, and all you can do is accept it or reject it, love or fear. So the physical world, the way it's manifested today, happened because of things that occurred in the past. This is common sense. The causes that happened in the past, and there's nothing you can do about that as of right now. The plane of effects of the physical world is where manifest reality have already occurred, taken shape and form due to the underlying causal factors. That which has occurred can't unoccur. It's already happened. It's already done. It can't be undone. And it's that which has become, or that which is truth. Human consciousness seems to be trapped in a cycle on the plane of effects, meaning humanity as a whole remains ignorant of the root causes to the problem we face as a collective, which we ourselves have set into motion through actions and inactions that led to the self-inflicted suffering in our lives. So if you're stuck on this plane, you're suffering only for two reasons. Why we suffer is because we refuse to believe the truth, and we believe in something that isn't true. These are the only two reasons why we suffer. Most people are stuck not looking at the problem but the symptoms. They think a band-aid to slavery will fix it all. And they say, oh, there's just a political solution. We just got to vote in the right people. Oh, there's a financial solution. We just got to set the right monetary policy. Oh, there's a scientific solution and technology advancements will come in and save us all. And they think all of this is going to magically be done with government still in place. Good luck with that. Let me know how it works out for you guys. You see, the word government derives from a word gubernare. It's pronounced gubernare in classical Latin because there is no V in classical Latin. And gubernare means to control. And ment means coming from mentes or mens, meaning mind. So government, the word quite literally means mind control. And we'll be talking all about mind control tactics and how government employs them every single day to keep the masses a dumbed-down herd and easily manipulated. The things that we say we want are impossible to obtain until we understand true morality, the true difference between right action and wrong action. So before we can have anything good, anything beautiful and elegant, we need to recognize, understand, and apply the power of truth and natural law principles. The underlying causes are how we think, how we feel, and how we behave. And no one wants to look at that. They want to think that all those things can just magically stay in place. How we think, how we feel, and how we act doesn't have to change to get what I want. And this isn't true. The plane of causality. This is the mental world. And we will talk about the law of mentalism again, as we have in the last episode. It's the first principle of natural law. Every law, every principle, everything that manifests, first has to manifest in the mind. Or the plane of causation. Before it can manifest physically in the plane of effects, all power to effect change lies on this plane of reality. And in order to apply true mastery of this principle takes responsibility. The principle of rhythm states everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the same measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. In everything there is a manifested, a measured motion, a to and fro, a flow and inflow, backward and forward, pendulum-like movement. This principle can't ever be annulled or cease to exist, for it is hermetically sealed. However, through appropriate formulas and methods such as the mental law of neutralization, One can escape this law to a certain degree by operating on the plane of causation and not being just a mere effect. One can move with the flow of energy instead of against the dragging of its currents. All things rise and fall. All energy has a manifested tendency of rhythm. These rhythms in motion are not set in stone. They can be changed once it is operating on the plane of causality. So no laws can be broken without consequence, but they can be overcome by higher laws or higher levels of consciousness and higher frequencies of love. Rhythm manifests between the two opposite poles established by the principle of polarity. The principle of polarity states everything is dual. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are similar. Opposites are identical in nature but different in degree. All extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths, and all paradoxes may be reconciled. The best example to explain how all extremes are identical, only separate in degree, is by looking at temperature. If you take the hottest possible degree and you compare it to the coldest, both will give you a similar burn. There is no degree where cold becomes hot or hot becomes cold. It's simply just the presence or absence of energy. And when we describe temperature, we are ultimately just discussing energy and its rate of vibration. How much energy is present and concentrated in one spot versus the absence of it, which is cold. Just like all opposites, hot, cold, sharp, dull, slow, fast, up, down, right, wrong, they are all identical. In nature, separated only by degrees, all manifested things have two sides, two aspects, or two poles. Within a manifold of degrees between the two poles, all truths are half-truths. Everything is and isn't at the same time. Spirit and matter are but two poles of the same thing, the intermediate planes being merely degrees of vibration. Just like knowledge and ignorance, at the fundamental level these two poles are the same because truth is always present. It's a matter of whether or not truth is concentrated in one given individual, taken in, understood, and processed, or whether it's refused to be taken in and ignored, and not processed. They're identical in nature but different in degree. Extremes can meet, and all paradoxes can be reconciled in harmony and balance, like as depicted in the yin-yang symbol. And at some level of reality, everything that is seemingly contradictory may be reconciled. And I stress the term at some level or degree of reality. Everything is pure consciousness or love force energy. However, at this level, the physical domain, there are differences in consciousness. At the plane of effects, there are illusions or fear-based veils of ignorance. Start pronouncing evil, e-veil. It's a veil of ignorance, giving our perception the spectacle of separation and ego. At this level, there are things that take place that we need to understand, separate, and rectify, because it does matter. And everything's not going to magically be okay in the end with slavery still in place, and people living in a morally relativistic society don't know the difference between right and wrong and don't believe in God. That's the society we're in. And it's not going to change if we don't understand the truth that is present everywhere. And we got to stop being ignorant of it. Out of darkness, the light will come. And this knowledge is being shared and understood as we speak. And it's ultimately what I'm trying to attempt to do. So let's continue. The principle of vibration states, nothing rests. Everything moves. Everything vibrates. All forms of light, heat, magnetism, and electricity are but forms of vibratory energy and emanate from the ether. So nothing rests or is dead in motion. And in this sense, true death is just an illusion, because death is the cessation of all motion and energy, and there is no such thing. You cannot go anywhere in creation where something is free of motion, at complete rest. Even a seemingly stationary object, like a chair, has all sorts of motion. In the atoms, when you zoom in it, crazy chaotic motion, especially when viewing the electron clouds of the atom, there's all kinds of motion happening. Perceived stillness doesn't mean stillness in reality. Again, perception is not reality. So if something's in existence, it's in motion. Ultimately, everything is pure vibratory energy that's manifesting itself in different ways, different forms and frequencies. The universe has no true solidity in the ultimate reality, Matter is just energy at a state of vibration. If we truly understand this, we will come to the understanding that this is a spiritual construct for experience to be gained. To have an experience, to learn and grow in consciousness, that's what the purpose of life is. That's what it's all about. That's what we're all about. We are a spirit having a human experience. The principle of correspondence, as above, so below. As below, so above. As within, so without. As without, so within. There are many planes of existence. To understand them, we must apply this principle as one of the most important principles in mental transmutation. If you want to change reality, you do so from within yourself. First, you have to change. The truth is, all that exists in the universe emanates from the same source. Natural law principles are characteristics that apply to each unit in the universe, micro and macro. So what is projected to be outside of ourself is just a reflection or a mirror of what's internal. These two external and internal worlds cannot be separated from each other. As one goes, the other goes. The universe is a holographic system. As we talked about last week's episode, a holistic image means the parts are contained in the whole. So yes, it is true, we are all individuals that make up the universe, but the universe isn't all individuals. And the entire universe is like an individual. They're reflections of each other. To know the workings of the individual psyche, ourselves, will help us understand the macrocosmic universe and its laws. And to learn the laws will similarly help us understand how the individual's consciousness functions. This knowledge of micro and macro natural laws of consciousness have been hidden away from the majority to keep them dumbed down and easily manipulated and dependent on government. Our reality is fractal in nature. Fractals are self-similar mathematical generated patterns, such as the Fibonacci sequence, which is generated in all nature. The structure and patterns of the atom is similar to the structure and patterns of the solar system and galaxy. They behave in the same way. The spiral in a fingerprint is the same spiral of the galaxy. The universe is self-similar across all scales of its existence. The principle of mentalism. As we discussed before, the universe itself is mental, held in the mind of the all, or in the mind of God. I won't be afraid to use that word on this show and call God what it really is, love. So the all, or everything in creation, is just the manifestation of the mind. The universe itself is a mental construct of the Creator. What this means is, everything that happens has to be in itself a result of a mental state that preceded it. The mental plane is the plane of causation. For anything to exist, thoughts had to form first, and then they form the physical reality after. Thoughts create things, events, and conditions. Thoughts create our state and quality of existence. That's why you have to be careful of the thoughts you focus on. In order to be responsible for what we create, we need to be responsible for what we think, and know the difference between our thoughts and insinuated ones. Because our thought processes are what are driving our behaviors. People behave the way they do because they have a certain belief system embedded in the mind, running like a program. Thoughts and emotions are ultimately what generate our behavior, and behavior doesn't just magically occur or change on its own. Thoughts and emotions have to change first. And now finally, one of the most hidden natural law principles, the lost principle. It's what binds all the other principles in the body of natural law together. It's also called the encapsulating principle. It's the container inside which all other principles fit in order. The lost principle is called the lost principle because humanity as a whole has lost it. It's not exercising it, let alone knowing of it. So, this is known as the seed of life. In order for existence to occur, the creative essence of this principle must occur first, and that principle is the principle of care. Care has to be present for any change to manifest itself, and it is in this care that generates and governs all of creation. This principle is the causal factor that goes into effect and generates the reality we experience and say we want. The principle of care. Now, this is different from compassion. This means what we focus upon, that's what ultimately grows. And that doesn't mean to not focus on anything negative, because ultimately what you'll be focusing on then is ignorance. And that's going to be what's growing, is more ignorance, more evil in the world. By ignoring the negative, you are ensuring that more of it occurs. You are fueling it by ignorance. What care has to be looked at as is what you care for, or what you care about, is what you give your energy to, your real money, your real spiritual currency. You see the word mon-e, or mon meaning one, and e being phonetically pronounced I, meaning one I, your true spiritual currency that you're spending your time and attention on. Those two currencies, time and attention. That's why we say spend your time. Once you spend it, you can't get it back. And pay attention. You're giving your focus and your energy to these are the two spiritual currencies of care. That's why you gotta really stay focused and not get distracted and let things drain your energy and drain your care from what truly matters. So attention, it's just energy. Time and attention, they're just care. It's energy we give in order to get a new skill or whatever information we're trying to obtain or manifest in the physical world. This is what care means. This is what generates our collective experience. In the aggregate, what we focus on grows. Most people don't care. They don't care about what's really happening. So the true great work in this life is practicing the art of influencing positive change in the hearts of others, so more people choose morality over immorality, love over fear, freedom over slavery. It is going to be impossible to change the direction of the collective consciousness while we are in the aggregate on the vibration of fear. Fear is the number one method, technique, and tactic used by evil to control minds on a mass level. You get someone in the state of fear, they're easy to manipulate. Fear is the opposite of love. Fear is the force that shuts down consciousness, confuses it from knowing the difference between right or wrong with obfuscated notions of morality, and prevents it from growing and expanding ever more. The lost principle, the principle of care, is the key principle required to master in order to restore balance to the world, to ourselves, to truth. What we care about on a day-to-day basis acts as our driving force. Our thoughts, emotions, and actions, we need to develop the care or the heart to know and understand in the mind, and then develop the courage to act. Knowledge and understanding, enlightenment, isn't the end-all, be-all. The goal with the enlightenment is to act with that knowledge for freedom, the ultimate goal. All we need is wisdom, or moral right application of knowledge. We need to overcome our fears and not let them rule us. And we do this by choosing love. This is love versus fear. Every choice you have, only option is love or fear. Every question there is, the answer is always love. By caring about what is true, natural, and right, care comes first. You got to care enough to know, and then you have to have the courage to understand and act on that knowledge, to apply it and put it into practice. This is what unity consciousness is. It's unifying our thoughts, emotions, and actions, which we will explore how to do that the best way as well in later episodes. This episode was a little longer than I intended it to be, but I had to finish laying down these basic foundational principles of natural law that are indeed most important to understand. In future episodes, I'm sure I'll be focusing on more principles like the natural law, self-defense principle, and the do no harm principle, but also I really want to get into the next segment of mind control and all the methods government employs and all the hidden knowledge that has been for thousands of years hidden, but recently with the power of the internet and the power of God and truth and love have been coming to light. And so it's our responsibility to take in this knowledge and educate people on the truth. So with all that being said, I hope I've given you a lot to think about. I am bringing this segment of basic foundational natural law principles to a close. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, leave a suggestion in the comments for future episode topics. List of some suggestions on interesting natural law principle sources will be in the description below, so just check that out. A couple books too. And just remember one thing. You can do anything you set your mind to, if you care enough. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right. And ultimately, at the end of each and every moment, you only have two choices: love or fear. If you know love, there will be no fear. If there is no love, there will only be fear. Knowledge dispels all fear. Peace.